Hey, boys and girls, happy Monday. How are you? Awesome. It's time to jump back on the saddle and get started with Number Corner. You may notice I have our calendar grid in the background. We're not talking about calendar grid today, but I do want to show you what today's marker looks like. Today is October 5th. When I show you today, you may want to pay attention to what yesterday's marker looked like as well. Because on Wednesday, we will talk more about these calendar markers and begin to fill in our calendar grid observation chart. So without further ado, here it is behind me. So yesterday was the 4th. Today's the 5th. All right. Let's move on to our focus of the day, which is solving problems. I love solving word problems, and you may remember when we worked through them last month, that was our goal, is to solve problems, to make sure we understand what the problem was asking. We could restate it in our own words. We identified what operation we should use. We wrote our equation with an unknown quantity, and then we solved it. And so that's exactly what we're going to do today. Later on in the month, though, we're not going to be working through the word problems. We're going to actually look at some of the student work that was done for the word problems that we'll see later on in the month. So for today, we have stamps and beads. So I'm going to pull a bigger version of that up, okay? Okay, here it is. Let me zoom in some so we can really see the problem. Make myself a little bit smaller. All right, take a moment, read this problem to yourself. All right. Now, I'm going to read it out loud. You may remember I have always encouraged you to read word problems at least 2 times. So, Leon bought a 3x6 sheet of stamps. The stamps cost 25 cents each. How much did Leon pay for the entire sheet of stamps? So, what is this problem asking us to figure out? I'm going to move myself up here for today. Okay, so what is this problem asking us to figure out? Who can share some thinking with me? Okay, so we got to figure out how much the stamps cost. You're right. Is there anything else anybody else wants to add on to that? Yeah, we need to know how many stamps there are in all. So I'm going to move this down ever so slightly, and I'm going to fill that in. So it is asking us this. We need to figure out, make it smaller. We need to figure out how many stamps there are and how much the stamps cost. Y'all agree with that? Are we good? Okay, great. I'll make it even bigger so we can clearly see. So, let's move on to the next part. Before we even do that, let's think. What information in the problem is going to help us solve this? And let's underline it, much like we did the last time. What information do we need to figure out how many stamps there are and how much the stamps cost? Okay, so we know that there's a 3x6 sheet of stamps. Okay, what else? Right, they cost 25 cents each. You got it. So, part B says, write an equation for the problem and use a letter to stand for the unknown quantity. If you don't remember, unknown quantity just means the answer. Since we don't know the answer yet, we can use a letter to stand in place of where our answer will go once we solve it. So I'm going to give you a moment to think about the equation that you may write to solve this problem. Right, so you should be writing an equation to solve this problem. Okay, can anybody share their equation with me? You guys told me earlier we need to know how many stamps there are, and we need to then figure out how much the stamps cost altogether. So, where should we begin our equation? Right, we underline a 3 by 6. So what does that look like if we were to write it using mathematical notation? Right, 3 by 6 looks like this. You got it. Okay, what else? You're right, we probably should figure out the 3 by 6 first, since that's how many stamps are on the page. So I'm going to put parentheses around that, because when I put parentheses around that, that tells me that's something that I could do first, or that I should do first. Okay, so what goes next? Right, each stamp costs 25 cents. So how would I represent that in terms of an equation? Right, times 25. So where would I put that times 25? Right, after the 3 times 6. Okay, are we done writing our equation? No, we're not. An equation has an equal sign and an answer. But since we don't know the answer yet, we're going to use a letter to stand for the unknown quantity. Since it's asking how much the stamps cost or how much he paid, maybe we can use a C. You can use an S for stamps. I'll leave the letter choice up to you. I'm going to put C on mine. So I want you to go ahead and get out your number corner journals and open up to page 19 so that you guys can copy down what we've done together. Okay? Go ahead and get it out. And write this equation in your book. If you need to pause this video to make sure you have enough time, please do so. And I'll move myself out the way so you can really see, so my face is not covering up our information. All right, so hopefully you have copied down the equation. And before we actually try to solve for the equation, and I just thought about this a little bit more, I am going to change it to S just because we're talking about stamps. So just to be consistent with the problem, okay? So before we solve it, I want you to create a sketch of what this may look like. So you can do this in your journal. You can also, if you're on a iPad or a Chromebook, you can use the Whiteboard app that's provided to us by the Bridges curriculum. Okay, that's what I may use, that or number pieces. So go ahead and start working on your quick sketch. And a quick sketch is just that, it's very quick. It's so quick, it's just showing enough detail to show the mathematics. So you don't need to draw out elaborate stamps. You can just draw simple rectangles or squares in order to make this a very quick sketch so that we can get to solving the actual problem. Okay, let's go ahead and create your sketch. All right, so you guys are working on your sketch. I'm going to work on my sketch just to make sure I know what the problem is asking. That's 3 times 6 times 25, which is S. I'm going to leave that at the top, and I'm going to work through my sketch. Continue working. You're doing a great job. Okay, so if you're still watching me, you haven't paused the video, then hopefully you're already thinking a 3x6 is what you need to create first. So that's what I'm going to do. A 3x6 means I have 6 rows of 3 or 3 rows of 6, and I'm doing a 3 rows of 6. So here's 1 row, or excuse me, 6 columns of 3. 3 columns, 4 columns, 5, and 6. So this is representing my 3x6. Right, continue your sketch. All right, so here's my sketch. And I know that each square is 25 cents. Okay. And I am going to add that I tried to put 25 cents over each square, but that just made it seem a little messy. And so just to be clear, here's my 3x6. And so I can make a 3, put 3 here, and I have 6. And then I know that each one of those squares are worth 6. Are we good with that? All right. All right, guys, now we want to solve how much money was spent on these stamps. All right, let's share out some strategies. What are you thinking? I'll tell you something that I thought about. So 25 cents is money, and we know 25 cents, right? And we know that there are 4 quarters that make $1. So I could have done something like this, and that means this is a dollar. Oops. Means this is $1. This is $1. This is $1. So right here we have $3 worth, right? So the problem is asking us how much money was spent on the stamp. So I don't want you to get the reason why I asked you to make a sketch before solving it is sometimes you guys can get bogged down in the actual equation that you're not thinking through what's happening and making sense of the problem. And so that's what I'm encouraging you to do. Since we know 25 cents really well, then that's pretty easy for us to solve because 4 quarters are in $1. So here we have $1, $1, $1. So far that's $3, and I'll write that underneath so we can keep track. I guess I should put a dollar sign there. And I shall. That's $3. Okay. That's how much money he spent so far, but we know we still have this many left, right? But this right here is another $1 because I have another 4 quarters. I'm going to put that here, which means we have 2 more quarters left. And what do we know about 2 quarters? 2 quarters is the same thing as saying 50 cents. So I can add that. 50 cents. So if I'm trying to figure out how much money we have all together, or how much money was spent on these stamps, what would it be? $3 plus $1 plus 50 cents is $4.50. Or I could say 450 cents, right? Because in each dollar it's 100 cents. So this is 300 cents, 100 cents, that's 400 plus 50 cents. So 450 cents, which is $4.50. So you might think about it in a different way. So you actually solved the problem. In the parentheses first, which gave you 18, and then you had to do 18 times 25. Is 18 times 25 a really easy problem to solve? No, it's not. But there's a strategy that we could use to solve 18 times 25. Can anybody think about what we've been doing in some of our problem strings? And just recently with our ratio table, we talked about doubling. And I'm pretty sure last month we talked about doubling and halving. So I could double one factor and halve the other. And if I do that, which one would I choose to double? Which one would I choose to halve? Right, maybe I would double 25, which means I'd have to have 18. So I would get 9 times 50 equals S. Is 9 times 50 an easier problem? Sure it is. We could do 9 times 5 times 10. We know 9 times 5, or we can figure it out really easily counting by 5s, and then times 10. Yeah? Could we double and halve again? We could, which would give us, we double 50, and we'd have 9. Ay. Would we want to double and half again? What's half of 9? Yeah, it's like 4.5. So that's kind of sticky. So let's stick with leaving it 9 times 50. And let's use what we know from playing our splat game to break up 9 times 50, which would be 9 times 5 times 10. We know 9 times 5 is 45 times 10, which is going to give us still 450. And since the context of the problem is money, 450 cents, or we could say $4.50. So take a moment and record in your journal the strategy that you liked the most. So if you hadn't already written in this space, or if you have, but maybe you liked one of the strategies that we've done together, take this time to complete that in your journal. If you need to pause this video, please do so. All right, guys, are we good? Ready to move on? Okay, well, before we move on, tell me, let's summarize what we had to do to complete this page. What did we do here? Yeah, we figured out what the problem was asking us. You're correct. Next, we wrote an equation. Right. What do we do after we wrote the equation? We sketched, and that's where we came over here, and that's when Ms. Trammell did the sketch. So sketching is going to be huge to make sense of problems, guys. Can't stress that enough. So we figured out what the problem was asking. We wrote an equation. Then we did a sketch. After we did our sketch, that's when we finally solved the problem, okay? So I know this may seem like a lot of work, but this effort will help you understand how to solve more complex story problems, I promise. So stick with me, okay? Okay, so here's the second page of stamps and beads. And this is another problem, which is very similar to the one that we just solved, okay? So read the problem out loud. Okay, I'm going to read it as well. Coral has 12 containers of beads. Pearl has 16 containers of beads. Each container has 5 beads in it. How many beads do the girls have in all? All right, so here's what I want you guys to do. You guys are going to go through this process all by yourself this time, because I want to see how well you're able to do it without my help. Okay, just to remind you, the first step is to figure out what the problem is asking. Then write your equation. Then you're going to draw a sketch. After you draw a sketch, and only after you draw a sketch, are you supposed to solve the problem. Sometimes you can think in the context of what the problem is, and that may help you figure out the best strategy or the most efficient strategy to use to solve the problem. So don't get stuck just by looking at the numbers and think about and not think about what the problem is saying. And that's where the sketch is going to come in, okay? All right. So if you're ready to solve it, you can solve it in your workbook. If you want to do it digitally so that you can share your work with your teacher, which I'd highly recommend, you can use the Whiteboard app that the Math Learning Center has. So I'm going to actually show you my key code. And if you put this code in, so if you were to click on the Whiteboard app, and you go to the bottom, you see where this key is, and you put in, hold on, put in my sharing code, which is this code right here, 4RE30C48. Then you'll be able to pull up my exact page, which already has the problem written at the top for you, okay? And you can use this app to draw your sketch before you solve it, okay? So if you need to pause this video to see this code, please do so. I'm going to leave it up for about 3 more seconds. Okay, so that's the code. So when you go to the Whiteboard app, you would press the key and then you would type the code in, okay? And then you will be able to work it out. Once you finish working it out, you can press this little box with the arrow here again, and you can take a picture of your work, or it'll give you a new share code that you can then send to your teacher so that she can see the work that you guys are doing, because you should be participating in these videos for Number Corner. You're responsible for learning this information. Are we good? This needs to be done before we meet for Number Corner by before day 6, which is really, today is day 3. So that would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, okay? By Thursday, this needs to be done. So that's more than enough time. Are you good? You're going to read the problem again. You're going to make sure you understand what it's asking. You're going to write an equation with an unknown, not just an expression, but the equation. Then you're going to sketch before you solve. All right, I believe in you guys. I think you can do it. Have a great Monday. See you tomorrow for Number Corner. Bye.